Welcome to the Growth Whisperers podcast, where everything we talk about is related to helping leaders and their amazing teams build great, enduring businesses. I'm Kevin Lawrence, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Brad Giles. Brad, how you doing today?
I'm pretty good indeed today. Thank you. How are you
Awesome.
doing?
So I'm doing pretty well too. I just had a great weekend, some time to get out of town, and some sunshine and fresh air. I'm feeling actually really good. This is a great way to kick off the week.
Excellent.
So what do we have on today?
Well, funny you should ask. Today, we're talking about the National Basketball Association of America's, their plan to reopen the sport in a bubble and how they're using technology to enable that, and also how that may be useful for listeners thinking about if they need to go back to work. Also, we're talking about wineries, believe it or not, and how to increase or decrease customer experience, and a little bit of a story around that. And then when we're talking about when you make a move in your business, when something happens and the people, some of the A players that you got can't keep up. So that's what we've got on today.
I think it's going to be really interesting today. I'm looking forward to it. So why don't you kick us off with the NBA and their technology and what they're up to, and you got me thinking when we were talking about this one before.
Yeah, so story in the press this week was interesting, because what we've got to do is, in business or in sport, that they clearly want to make money. They're like everyone, they want to get out there. So what they're going to do to ensure player safety is they're going to get back to work, get back to the sport in a bubble in Disney World in Florida. All of the NBA teams, I think there's maybe 12, I could be wrong. All the NBA teams are going to go there and they're going to play each other in this bubble. But to ensure that they don't transmit COVID, they're all going to wear this thing called a aura,
I think I would guess that's the proper.
Yeah, it's a smart ring. So think about like a wedding ring that's a tech device, a smart tech device. All the players are going to wear that. Now, this has a 90% accuracy to predict that you have the COVID virus 3 days before any symptoms appear. So it's really it tracks your respiration, it tracks your body temperature very accurately, it tracks your sleep, and some of the changes there are very early stage. And I think they were working with the University of Michigan to collate that data and to use that. So effectively, they've also got another small wireless band. So if they get too close to one another for too long, it could be a problem. But the really interesting thing is this ring that anyone can buy. I've got clients I work with that use it, and just how they can tell exactly what the status is of the players. If they're beginning to get sick, they can straight away isolate them as soon as it happens, because they're
using it. You're saying like an ongoing health assessment, like a live rolling health assessment for the individual. And there's they're using almost it for the contact tracing almost, or the proximity sensor.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about the proximity sensor. There's another device, like an armband, like a wristband, a bangle kind of thing that they're doing. But the main thing, and I suppose I'm thinking about the relevance for businesses as well. If you had to get back and you wanted to be more certain, it's just another idea. It's a way to use smart wearables in this type of environment.
It is interesting, and it also brings up, for those that are on the conspiracy theorist end of the spectrum, it's the big brother is watching you more than I mean, like we're being tracked constantly by our phones these days, but it has more of those data points, live data points about you, which is convenient. And then there's concerns of, well, boy, if your temperature went above a certain thing for a certain amount of time, you could lose some of your freedoms that you would maybe be used to. And it's not that might not be wrong, but it brings up a whole bunch of other questions. But I think for me, the interesting part, and I was, I've got some friends that have used them and swore by those rings as being powerful.
Yeah.
it's interesting from a personal perspective to have that data on yourself. And that's, for
Yeah.
me, I am actually quite fascinated by it. And I think I'm going to look into that. I'm thinking I'm probably going to order one myself and try it. If it's good enough for the NBA, it should be good enough for me. But but then there's the, the big brother control company having their people being constantly monitored. That's a whole different side of it. But the insights and the data, and if you said the predictability of people getting COVID is fascinating.
Yeah, yeah, it is. I've before COVID, before the pandemic, I've got clients also who use these devices, the Aura Smart Ring, and I can remember going there, and they would say this particular client would say, "Well, yeah," I'd say, "How you doing?" And he'd say, "Yeah, I'm a bit worried because I think I'm going to get sick." I say, "Do you feel sick? Like you?" No, I just the ring is telling me that I'm just about to get sick in a couple of days. Okay, so that must feel bad. It's just he just knows it. Yeah,
Was it
it,
right? Was it right? Did
I think it was, but I think it said to him that he needs to load up on vitamin C and zinc, like right now. So you know
it knows
how
that?
much. Yeah, well, that was what it was. I think that's what he said it was saying to him. Now, yeah, that's. I don't know that much about it. I don't have one,
Okay.
but he
You
was
could be
saying,
making that up. Okay. Okay. No.
well, that was his reaction, and I don't know
Okay.
whether that was his response to that, or it told him you're about to
I
get
got it.
sick. You need to
So
start
that's what he
taking that.
said, but whether it's because the ring said take vitamin C and zinc, or there was an indicator that made him believe
Yeah.
he needed to take vitamin C and zinc, by the way, which is the one thing I've been hearing from a lot of people that are in the know, that
Uh-huh.
vitamin Z and your zinc are your friend, particularly with things like this virus, to as a help, not making claims that it prevents or anything else, but it keeps your body in a stronger state to push off these types of threats.
And every little bit helps, right? Every little
I
bit.
think so. You probably eat a few extra
Asterix, we are
oranges.
not a doctor. We are not doctors.
Nope. No, we don't know. We don't know, but we hear the people. Basically, it's put more good stuff in your body and you'll be
Yeah.
stronger. But it's fascinating. So the Aura Smart Ring, I'm going to check it out further myself. It sounds real interesting, and it kind of takes us on to this other piece about how people are responding, and it's great that they're finding ways to get back to work. And over the past weekend, a few of us were up in this wine region of Canada called the Okanagan, where we have kind of two main wine regions, one back in the east in the Ontario area, and then this one in the west up where near I live, in the Okanagan. And there's areas, for those that aren't aware, called Kelowna, and all the way down to this place where we spend a lot of time in Oliver and Osoyoos, right touching the U.S. border, like as southern as you can get in this part of Canada. And it's interesting. The wineries are, the business model of a winery is that they sell through restaurants and liquor stores, normal
Yeah.
distribution, and then they have on-site sales where they get to sell at full retail, not wholesale, full retail, and they say, "Hey, come in, have an ounce of wine for free. Try our wines, experience our brand, hear the story of our winery, get a little tipsy, and then we'll offer you some wine for sale." And people
Yep.
walk out with boxes of wine all day long. And
And it's
and
it's an experience and an adventure for those people.
it is. It
Yeah.
is. There's one of my favorite places to go is a place called Burrowing Owl, which is a cool winery, and it's got a story. And they take the tasting fees and donate it to charity. Often, it's related to the fees go towards helping the burrowing owls in the area and saving the burrowing owls. And they have this. It's an awesome. It's all. I think it's a very authentic story. And they have some excellent wines. And I was there a few weeks ago. It's really close to where we go. And I was there a few weeks ago when they weren't allowed to be open yet for wine tasting. And now in this past weekend, they were, and lots of places were, but it was fascinating seeing the different executions of the rules. And I'm sure the rules look to be very stringent. I mean,
The
I have
rules,
never,
the
the rule,
COVID by the government
yes,
rules.
like you're
Yep.
allowed to have people come in and try your wine and buy your wine if,
Uh-huh.
and they look very stringent. I mean, like the cleanliness. I mean, some of the places felt like it was as clean as a hospital. Seriously, like
Yeah.
the cleanliness standards were incredible. The fascinating thing is that went to a few different places, and the difference in the customer experience was extraordinary. Like they were all clean.
Really?
But one place, they'd bought a bunch of portable metal tents because this is a sunny, warm region. And out on the grass on the property, they had a whole bunch of, probably about 10 portable tents. So they've extended. Normally you taste it inside the winery building, but they put them all outside because you have to be spaced out, right? Like
Sure.
really, like well beyond what a restaurant is. So they got their 10 portable tents. The people are as sweet and friendly as you can imagine. Hey, just wait a minute. We'll take you over here. Long story short, and they're cleaning, sanitizing the table, all these things, keeping their distance. All that's good. Having a great time. The proprietors there telling jokes and joking around. I mean, the wine was good. The experience was better, right? It was outstanding.
Yeah.
But then at another one, and only went to, I think, 3 or 4. You can only hit so many and you get yourself in trouble. But another one, it felt like a child being sent to the principal's office. So everything was like so
Wow.
rigid. Everyone was tight. They were following the same policies, but it was like a big part of the experience as a customer is how it feels. It's like the server in a restaurant in normal times.
Yeah.
You can give you a great meal, but if it feels robotic and like we talked about in our last show, the robotic dog, was it Spot?
Yeah.
Yes. The robotic
Boston
dog can serve
Dynamics.
you. Thank you. The robotic dog could probably serve you the meal, but it's not the experience. So anyways, in this place, it was fast. They were following all the same rules, but it felt clinical.
And why do you think that it was?
Well, here's what they told us. Somebody from head office was visiting.
Oh.
So for those of us that are involved with head offices, be aware, because when you're in the building, sometimes people are scared. And I don't know what happened here, but the morning meeting couldn't have been good. The morning meeting definitely was not about let's love our customers today and let's make sure people have like the best experience ever. Right. And I had a couple interactions with people. They weren't bad people. It wasn't a friendly experience. Like it was, I am fearful of losing my job and I cannot make a mistake or be a millimeter off policy today. People are in self-preservation mode. So it's us, and we're part of the head office and in a lot of the companies we work with, but so it was fascinating. So again, I appreciate they're following the rules and wanting to follow the cleanliness standards, all good. Absolutely all good. But somehow people had forgot about the damn customer. And that the fact the customer didn't come for cleanliness. The customer came for an experience, but the experience required cleanliness. So it's not even just about this virus thing. This is about how do our decisions as leaders trickle down to the front lines and the people who pay the bills, which is the customers. And you us as people who are part of the leadership teams that make some of these decisions. How do the employees feel about it? And how are the employees left? And are the employees left with a sparkle in their eyes and wanting to engage and entertain the customers? Yeah, or they have fear in their eyes. I was watching the people walk around. These people had a lot of fear in their eyes. And again, maybe they had a big issue the day before. Maybe something, maybe the health board came in and wrote them up. I don't know.
Yeah.
But whatever it was, following policy far surpassed making the clients have a great experience. And it was a shame because it was a great winery and it was definitely not a great experience.
But as you said, I mean, if someone's coming from head office, it just changes the whole dynamic. It changes the story. At first, I thought that you were saying that it was just, they were just sticklers for policy, and it was a small owned winery, but it just changes everything because that really introduces the dynamic of the ivory tower, which is a problem that I've come across once or twice in my times. And that happens when you're with a leadership team and you say to them, so when was the last time that you spoke to a customer? And the silence.
Yeah. We call it crickets. You can hear crickets a mile away in the background because no one, and Brad, and that's why like we are adamant with the leaders we work with. Like I call it playing office. You can't build a great business playing office, means you sit in your office and talk to people all day. That's not where the action happens, right? Unless you're in a buy sell business, but still, it's, what do you talk to the customers out front of the customer? What are they saying? What are they thinking? How are they feeling? Like, you look, because you walk into a business, like, you don't have to be a rocket science to walk into a business and get a feel for it very, very quickly.
Oh yeah,
And
sorry,
you
go on.
can't feel through a spreadsheet
Oh,
because
not
it's
at
all about the
all.
customer. You can't.
Yeah. Sorry, I had a team that I was working with, well, I still work with, but a couple of years ago, and I distinctly remember this story because we said in preparation for our workshop, every single time for a quarterly workshop offsite, every single time they had to go out and they had to have, I guess, like 3 conversations, I think it was, with customers and bring the insights back to the team. So we'd go around the table and we'd just get these amazing insights. They'd be like, oh, did you know that they're building a new plant? Because it's a B2B business, like business to business, not business to consumer like the winery. So the stuff that customers would tell us was remarkable. It was just amazing. So yeah, I think it's something that permeates, and we've got to actively push against the ivory tower problem.
And you know who's nailed this? Is one of the companies in the world that provides some of the best customer experience, and that's Ritz-Carlton Hotels. So when I would go to the Middle East, I spent at least a few months of my life in Ritz-Carlton hotels, particularly one of the ones in Dubai.
Mm.
And so I got to know, I'd be there for 2-ish weeks at a time, sometimes 3, but 2-ish typically. And so I got to know all the people in the hotel. And what I noticed is, at the front door of the hotel, I would see the people who were the housekeeping managers, the food and beverage managers, the back office managers. And so as I got talking, I mean, I studied Ritz in the past because they are outstanding. Every department manager does a shift at the front door every day.
Every day. Oh,
every department manager, and I'm just scanning my memory to make sure, was it weekly or daily? I am almost sure it's every day. Like, they would spend an hour and they would stand.
daily.
Yeah, I'm pretty damn. But they would stand at the front door. You enter the main doors of the hotel, and boom,
Wow.
they would be right there. And they would always, because that's how they stayed in touch with the customer. Again,
Yeah.
you can't play off. And if you play office, you become delusional. So they would sit there and talk to you and be, hey, Mr. Lawrence, how's everything going? How did this work out? Anything we can do for you today? Like, every day. And different people, because it keeps them in touch with the business. And that's the unfortunate part, is that people lose touch. So again, I believe from this head office person probably had a good intent. They probably didn't come from the customer side of the business.
Yeah.
Right. They were probably a compliance person. I'm making up a story right now, but they weren't, and that's why for them, by the way, they probably weren't serving customers. They were checking rules.
Yeah.
And just as a simple side note, the woman at the winery where they had all the outdoor tents, which is, was excellent. And obviously the experience makes me want to go back. I don't even know if the wine was as good, and it doesn't really matter to a certain degree.
Yeah.
There's a range of good to amazing, and it was in the good range. But even the woman who served the wine at the way out said, hey, as we're in the lineup buying stuff, as you do, said, hey, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. And thank you for your patience, because we had to wait, 10 minutes or something. Thank you for your patience. I appreciate it. And we hope to see you again.
And was that a locally owned winery, or was it part of a conglomerate or a chain?
It was a locally owned.
Yeah.
The owner was there. He showed up, and he was kind of a crazy entrepreneur. I could see it. I was kind of, kibitzing with him, joking with him. And, but it was a family owned business, where the other one was a big corporate winery. And again, it's easier. It's easier in some small businesses to create that kind of environment, where the corporate one, someone was concerned about policy, and policy ruled that day.
Look, I can only assume they've just been smashed. So they're really grateful, and they're happy that they're back working and the tills are turning over. I get
Exactly.
that, but it's just interesting how that's the way that they deal with it. Whereas the other chain, let's say, or the one that's part of a larger group, they're worried that someone might be coming out, that they've got to comply with the policies. So yeah,
But both have the same policy to comply with. Both were and
yeah,
truly, and you could see by the process and the standards, they were both following the same policy, and it was an extreme policy, like the government policy they had to follow. It was clear that the same activities were happening in both places. The root of it is one group was doing it connected to making the customer experience great was the first, where the other one, not getting in trouble was the first. And no matter what, I'm not saying I could have done it better. I'm not saying I would have been a better leader. There's other variables we don't know. But
yeah.
at the root of it, it's about our job as leaders is to create an amazing customer experience that makes them thrilled and want to continue to transact. That's it.
Yeah.
And the sparkliness and the engagement of the people on the front lines defines that. And
So
at some point, we lose that. That's all.
can you change back though?
Yes, of course you can. This is the difference between companies that we work with that are very culture focused, right? Because it's about
Yeah.
where the leader of the organization or the team puts their energy.
Yeah.
So and that's why as leaders we have to be so careful, because when there's a saying we use sometimes, you might have a similar one there, but it's when the CEO sneezes, the company gets a cold.
Yeah.
I.e.,
Okay.
people follow the direction or energy of the leader, and that's why there's no one right way to run a company, and we see huge differences in how people operate.
Yeah.
But the best organizations put the customer service at the forefront.
What we would say in that situation is people respect what you inspect. So if as the CEO,
Yes.
you inspect the bathrooms all the time, then people will respect that. If you respect a certain core value or sales numbers every day, then people will respect what you inspect. Same principle
Exactly.
though.
It is. It's
Okay.
whatever you're putting energy to. So I think that the lesson for people and the reality check is, one,
Yeah.
how much time have you spent transacting with customers? What's your percentage of playing office, meaning administering your business through spreadsheets and documents and meetings, versus being out on the front lines, talking to customers, meeting customers, how's it going, and still being in the game, because that's where the game is played.
And it's not
And then,
beneath you. I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's not beneath you. It gives you valuable insights and data. It gives you a perspective that you just can't get through a spreadsheet. You could see a net promoter score moving up or down, and that's nice. But when you go out there and the client says, "Do you know what? Your service sucks. Like, I can't believe how long I have to wait, or I can't believe how rude this," whatever it is. Like, if you hear that from the mouth of the customer, there is
yeah,
no substitute for that as a leader.
no, and I will tell you, and I'm not going to name names or give specific, but I believe one of the best CEOs I have ever worked with, and I won't say male, female, I won't say country, but I remember vividly almost every time I met with that CEO, their cell phone would ring. They would say, "I need a second," and it was a customer. This was a
Oh,
substantially sized business. This was not a little cottage business. This was a machine, that was insanely high performance, highly profitable machine. But the return on capital that this CEO got, which is the ultimate measure of a CEO, the pace and the quality that things happen. Like, this CEO was an excellent CEO. It'd be if of all the best performing. I'm not saying whether I like these people more or less, but the best performing
yeah.
CEOs, this CEO would be in you know the handful of the ones that had the best pattern of performance over quite a period of time. But every time I was with this person, they would end up with a customer call.
Yeah.
Every
Wow.
time. And this was not a small business. And it's fascinating. They were deeply connected. And last thing I'll share with you, and
Yeah.
it's just something that it's a story that I've been inspired by for 15 years. There's a guy who helped build Coca-Cola enterprises out around the world. His name was Henry Schimberg. He was a beast. He was not normal. But what he would do, and we can fact check the number, but I'm pretty darn sure the number was, he would do 10,000 customer visits a year. Yeah.
That's the sound of the drawer as I grab the calculator. Hang on.
Yeah. Yeah. 10,000. So he basically lived on his jet. He would fly to wherever he was going. And again, mostly outside of North America. And he would be going to retailers, stadiums, nonstop all day with his team. How many is that a day, Brad?
Yeah. 10,000 divided by 365 is 27.4 per day.
So there's an article. We'll source the article. And I am highly confident that is the number. It was an outstanding number. But let's just say, for argument, it was 1,000. But what he would do is he would tour grocery stores. And he would say, we should have Coca-Cola here. We should have Coca-Cola beside the lobster because blah, 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 blah. So he was going and finding everywhere he went, he was trying to get, basically, he built out the business.
Yeah.
And he did it through non-stop, front of the line customer visits, looking for opportunities, seeing opportunities, filling opportunities, just obsessive. So even if we back the number down to 1,000, there are very few salespeople who would do 1,000 customer visits a year, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot. And never mind executives or CEOs. So you can look the article up, and it's outstanding. So the point of it is front of the house, driving business, touching, feeling, hearing what customers are saying and responding to it. And it's really powerful. So anyway, if we roll that back, is that, for us that are the leaders, are you, when you're implementing things, are you finding ways to help your team perform better? That increases the customer experience rather than they comply and do what you say. But then the customers are like, what the heck's going on here? I'm not feeling the love.
Yeah. It's the essence of what we do, make customers happy. Yeah.
And
happy
that's
customer.
easily forgotten. It's easily forgotten.
Oh,
when you get too busy in your spreadsheets and playing Office and your meetings, and it's
no, the customer brings the dollars. Okay, so what have we got next?
We were going to talk and really dig into, and it's a continuation of this piece around, people and taking care of customers. But there's a scenario very often in companies that we work with where, for whatever reason, often the company will grow to a point and then it kind of just, plateaus for a while, and then they decide they want to grow again, or they're growing in this left direction and they decide they want to go right. But somehow there's a upping of the game, and the company either, or a changing of expectations, and the company either is going a different direction, a higher direction, and or the company just kind of wakes up out of hibernation for a decade or a few years, which we see all the time. Like, when we go into generally in a family business that's been, going along for a period of time, bumbling along generally, and whether it's the next generation or the next owner or whatever it is, and they want to really, let's make this thing into something great. There's some challenges with the team, because as you've seen and I've seen, sometimes the team's like, yeah, but I've been doing it the same way for 10 years. What are you guys talking about? Yeah. Or, I don't agree with your new direction, or I just want to do my job. Yeah. So, and then it becomes a lot of internal tension, because, there's a bunch of people who are rowing in the right direction. There's other people who don't even want to row. And how do you handle those things when you almost essentially kind of, the company outgrows a bunch of its team, and the team doesn't necessarily want to come along for the ride? Yeah.
I'm thinking about one particular business that I work with, and we when I started working with them many years ago, one of the people on the leadership team, they just didn't fit. But they'd kind of padlocked themselves or locked themselves into their job, and they did enough, but nothing more, if you know what I mean. Their passion was investing in property. That's not what the business did. They were completely unrelated. But this person had their own personal property investment, and that occupied their time. And so they were kind of like, oh, I'll just keep this job. I'll come and I'll do what I'm told, and I'll do my little property thing, and I'll just like, it was very cruisy. And of course, that isn't really the
Did you
way.
say cruisy?
Yeah.
Cruisy, got
A
it.
very cruisy. You're learning words all the time, aren't you?
I know, it's awesome. I like that. It's very cruisy. I like it.
I gave a speech to 200 CEOs, 130 CEOs and various people last week. And I used the word bloke, which is a fairly common word here.
Yep.
And there was a chat panel. And on the chat panel, what is bloke? It's just, we just speak the same language with some slightly different words. That's all.
Yes.
Coming back. So this person was a passenger, and it was as I came into the team and kind of turned up the volume knob on the expectations. Yeah, pretty quickly, the fact that this person was padlocked down and didn't want to do anything, and yeah, it became pretty obvious. But the CEO wanted, well before he met me, he could see this is the direction that we want to go. And so, he tried and tried and tried to get this individual to step up and to begin to take accountability. I mean, this was a substantial business, and this person was in a substantial role. We're not talking, a tiny business here by any means. Everyone else in the leadership team grew. This person didn't. They didn't even grow a tiny bit. And then eventually we got to the point where we were like, well, it was like the elephant in the room. We'd come together, and everyone else was, let's use a school analogy. Everyone else had just entered university with their level of competence that they'd gained. And this individual, they were still in primary school. It was awkward, but eventually, the person, they left, and we got another amazing A player in their role, and that launched the company onto its next level. I don't know. I see this stuff all the time.
I see it all the time, and in every company that we work with. And the challenge is that how do we give the person the benefit of the doubt and help them to, because not everybody wants to grow. Like whether they're not motivated to, or sometimes they're not capable of it. And these are some of the biggest decisions as a leader, is that when do we continue to engage people and try and bring them along? And when do we just realize it's not going to work? And, in lots of the companies that we've worked with over the years, one of the things we find is sometimes they'd be amazing at a role just a notch down.
Yeah.
Like, and they're like, if they're a values fit, if they fit well with the culture and sometimes they don't. The ones that don't fit the culture, those are easier because it's like, they're toxic and they got to move on. They know too, someone's going to have the adult discussion at the right point. So those ones are hard, but we can deal with those. But it's like, it's Frank or Sally that's been with us for 15 years, and they were amazing in the day. In their day 10 years ago. Now, whether it's because the role has grown and they haven't, or because they're in their property business, or they're busy with their kids' sports, or who knows what, their
other passion,
whether it's whether their energy is going elsewhere, or they just don't have the capability for the job or the interest, like, who knows? But one of the things that we always try to do is to unpack the situation. And that's why we'd like to, for most of our companies, go through and review the key leaders in the team every quarter, and we re-rank them, rate them. How are they doing? And then what do we got to do to help them to become the best version of themselves in that role? And often we have to change the roles, especially when companies don't have a disciplined process they use for promoting people or hiring people. You end up with a mishmash. But I have found in a lot of cases, like, we want to try and still have an opportunity for these people and treat them properly. And in a lot of cases, many cases, we have found ways to coach and manage people into a different role,
Yeah.
a place where they can be exceptional, and they're going to feel better and we're going to feel better. And so we find, for example, you find a person who ended up being a location manager for the company that maybe needs to go back and be the right hand to a location manager, or
Yeah.
to be a technician or do a technical role, and finding a way to kind of promote them to an important new opportunity so that they can feel good, and how they can they can have honor and dignity in this, because people don't want to feel mediocre, except for maybe the scenario like you said where someone's just kind of milking it to work on their property business on the side.
Yeah.
But it's
I had it.
how do we
Go
make
on.
sure that we're doing our job as a leader to give them the feedback, hey, we need you to perform better, or change the role, or change them. Like, there's a bunch of variables that you can change role, smaller role, change manager, change duties, carve the job into half and let them keep the half they're good at and someone else do it. There's
It
lots of
does depend on the
variables.
situation. It does. I mean,
Yeah.
there's many different. I had one recently that comes to mind, and this company, they've had to kind of pivot or move to a slightly different industry, and that's because through no fault of their own, the industry revenues were reducing. There was just less demand, so they couldn't see any growth, and they needed to pivot to another direction. In any case, there was one specific individual that they were talking about, and this person was more of a frontline type worker rather than a leader in the business. And I tell you, they were struggling because they said, look, this person was one of the first people that joined our business. They were really great in that industry, that area that we were in. But now, as we look to the future, they don't really want to do the new work. They really want to do the old work. And it's like they haven't done anything wrong. So we don't want to fire them. We don't want to punish them for that. But still, like, we need to have great people as we move forward. If they don't want to do what we're doing, we can see these revenues consciously, intentionally reducing over time in the old business. And then the new business, as we take on the new opportunities as we move forward. So we can't really see, like, it's just this awkward, uncomfortable situation. That's
So what do you do? What do you do? What are you doing? I've seen a number of those as well. So what happened in that situation? And I can share some other examples of what we've done too.
Yeah, so that's pretty new. That's pretty fresh. What our plan is to keep that person as one of the last people standing in that revenue stream, and just have the upfront and honest conversation and say, look, this is our plan. We need to have someone who can do that old work. We're really busy. And look, the gross margins in the new area, we consciously moved into that area. The gross margins are like 2.5 to 3 times in the new area. It's fantastic. But in terms of what we're saying, the old area, we're just going to let that person ride it out, and we'll say to them, one day we're not going to have any work there, and we'll help you get another job. We'll give you a great, we'll try to refer you someone.
Perfect.
But
yeah,
this is it. We're on the northbound.
They know they're on a dead end road.
Yeah.
And the road will come to an end. And I think that's a fair thing, because you need people to hold the old, we'll call it the old resilient, or the old business together. Yeah. And they, as long as they know, and that's as a leader, say, hey, here's the deal, you can help. And there's opportunities on this new thing if you want to do whatever it happens to be. And it's some of those transparent conversations that are missing, because we're all adults. They're not stupid. They can see the writing on the wall. They just might not want to make a change. And maybe it's a catalyst. And I like what you said, Brad, and it's a strategy we use a lot, which is, letting people know, hey, down this road, this is a limited road, and here's some other options. You can take some training or development and move into this area. If you want to get a job somewhere else, we'll gladly, we'll help you, because you're great at what you do. And we know there's probably a few of our suppliers or partners or whatever it happens to be. But it's you can treat them with great dignity and respect, and you want to respect them, and help them. And we've had situations also in companies where there would be somebody there who is at the end of their career, and they're not overly effective, but It's like they work with the founder's father 35 years ago when the business started. Like but they're not overly capable, but yet we're very loyal to them. So we've had scenarios where we might say, look, we're going to pay them, say, look, we're going to, give you your salary for the next 2 years. And we're going to give you these, we take them out of the active role.
Yeah.
Because in the active role, they can't, like, they're not effective enough anymore, or they would be in a way, but we would let them do other projects around the business and say, look, and we're going to pay you for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
And we want you to continue to help us and help us special projects and help whatever it happens to be. But you pull them out of the action. It's like you take the hockey player, and hockey's a big sport. You take the hockey player off the ice, but then they might be mentoring other players. You get them out of the middle of the game where you have to have your best people. And there's lots of respectful ways, but the killer, and I have a client that we worked with. I told the client finally, like, you're wasting your money working with me. Because they had somebody who is in the scenario that you described, who was in the heart of the heart of the heart of the business. Like, the whole blood, the heart and all the veins and arteries were run by this guy.
Yeah.
He was really nice. He didn't have the cognitive abilities or the relationship skills, or he did not have the ability to do the job at all. But the owner didn't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
And so the business was rotting from the inside because this nice guy had, his own people were starting to turn on him.
It's crazy.
And when I said,
it is crazy. The loyalty that you and I see, loyalty's great, but loyalty can be really, really bad for the business if you let it take over.
I have this concept I call loyal to a fault.
Yeah.
And I wrote an article about this a while ago. Is that, are you loyal to people, or are you loyal to people that perform? And what I've realized is most of the companies we work with, no wonder they did so well. Almost all of them, except for one that was really effective because it was in the direct tourism industry. But most of them have found ways to thrive and do really well. But we instill with them loyal to people that perform.
Yeah.
And we run them closer to a professional hockey or sport team than we do just a bunch of people running around and playing for fun.
Yeah.
And that loyal to performance is critical for companies that grow. I think it's probably the most important thing. And
I think that
but loyalty for loyalty's sake is lethal. It's dangerous. Like, really, it makes you a very sweet person, but your people will lose faith in you.
Yeah.
Because your A players will look at that and go, "What's wrong with you?" And your customers will look at you and go, "What's wrong with you?"
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I like what you said about transparency, right? We've got to have transparency. We've got to be able to be credible in what we're saying. Stat that I recently was talking about from my book, it said that 80% of employers trust their industry more than they trust, of employees trust their industry more than they trust their employer. And of the 20% who trust their employer more than the industry, it's only by a 3% margin average. So we've got to, isn't it? We've got to, and that is because when people are too loyal, or they don't want to tell the truth, or they don't want to tell the hard truth, or as I gave in that earlier example, when it's like, look, everyone around here knows that we're pivoting the business to that direction. We all know, and you know, that you don't want to go in that direction. So let's figure out something that's going to be mutually beneficial while we've still got these revenues. That just build that vulnerability and that openness. That just builds so much trust. It just feels like, you've just got to understand the importance of just being direct and honest with people. That's all I would ask for as an employee.
And it's a foundational skill of managers and leaders that many are weak at. And that's why in the companies we work at, Brad, why do people hire us? In almost every company we work at is that when we go through and do that, the people sitting at the table are 50% different after 18 months. And many of them are still in the company. They're in different roles.
Yeah.
But we require greatness. You got to be great at your job to be in those jobs and in those roles, and a lot of people aren't. And because of loyalty or wanting to avoid conflict and keep harmony or whatever it happens to be, we keep these mediocre people in these very important jobs, and we wonder why the company doesn't perform, or why the people aren't engaged, or the customers aren't thrilled. And it's like, business is a serious thing. If high performing business, look, you can have a recreational business. It's hard. Actually, it's harder when you have weak people and people in the wrong roles. It is harder because so much more stuff flows up, and some people like that maybe. But so I think the point is really our people, and this is the intent of HR departments, and it doesn't always work, but the people get the feedback they need and the resources they grow, so we can have what we call aces in their places. Right? Have the right people in the spots where they can do their best work, which is good for them. That's why it makes them feel good about themselves. And it trickles down to those customers who then can feel really good. And that's why it's not for everyone. You know, building a really successful business, and when we're around it all day, it's hard.
And that's Jim Collins. That's Jim Collins. Sorry. Rule number one, you got to get the right people on the bus.
Yep. That's the same in sport, in business, even with your friends and family. If you want to have a great party, you got to have the right people.
Yeah.
And then you have to set the right environment that brings the best out of those people, which is leadership. So the final kind of thought I'll do, and we move along, but is just think about a DJ at a wedding. You know, the guy that plays the music, whatever you guys call them in Oz. Yeah, you can have you can have all the right people at a wedding or a party. But if the guy doesn't play the right kind of music to put the right kind of energy in the room, people don't get up and dance and have a great time.
Yeah.
But if you get the right guy or gal playing the right kind of music, and they know those songs for the audience that get people fired up, the DJ creates the real robust party.
Yeah.
And that's our job as a leader. One, we got to have the right DJ. You know, we got to have the right music, and and the venue helps, although the venue could be almost anything. But then it takes a group of people and creates a better experience than would have happened naturally. And I think that's our jobs. And but sometimes we focus too much on policies and rules and these beautiful things. Policies are great. Rules can be good. Loyalty is amazing.
Yeah.
Until it's not.
Yeah. But there's got to be authentic, genuine human leadership front and center, pushing everything forward.
Yep.
That sounds like a good place to wrap it up, I think. So, thank you. So this has been the Growth Whisperers. I can't remember the words that I'm supposed to say at the end. That's an awesome way to finish.
I have them, Brad. You got
okay.
You're Brad.
I've got them.
You got them. Okay. So you remember you're Brad and I'm Kevin. Yeah.
That's right. I'm Brad. You're Kevin. Look, we're recording this late at night. So thanks for listening. In all seriousness, thanks for listening. This has been the Growth Whisperers, I think it's called. I'm Brad Giles, and Kevin Lawrence, my co-host. For the video version, you can go to YouTube, and you can find me at evolutionpartners.com.au, and you can find Kevin at Lawrence and Co. Tell me what it is.
LawrenceandCo.com. Exactly what you were about to say, Brad.
That's what I was about to say. LawrenceandCo.com. Thank you for your help there, Kevin. Thanks everyone. It's been good to chat, and have a great week. We look forward to chatting next week.